Well, let's talk about what the government promises. We have this story from CBS, how one lawmaker wants to curb gun sales, a 1,000% tax on semi-automatic weapons. Before we read the news, I'd like to give a shout out to our good friend Michael Malice with this quote. All I'm asking for is the right to the same weapons that I paid for the Taliban to own.
Yeah, that's fair.
Bravo, good sir.
That's
I
fair.
completely agree.
Yeah. Well, this is
and the Ukrainians and the Mexican cartels, and let's forget all the dictatorships in Latin America that we finance and we funneled money through Iran Contra. I could keep going, by the way.
What we do a skit where it's like a guy talking to Obama and he's like, "Mr. President, did you give a bunch of these high-powered rifles to cartels?" "Yes, I did." "Can I have one?" "No, you can't."
Yep,
that's it.
Yep,
that's an Obama. Very quick. No, very good.
That's a very good Obama. But again, the U.S. government literally is one of the chief exporters of weaponry on the world. But also
not for us though.
But yeah. But not just the Afghanis. Let's not forget ISIS, radical jihadists inside of Syria that literally had the latest U.S. Technology, gear, weapons.
They had that
bullets,
truck from Detroit or whatever. Remember
Toyota trucks that were given to them. Radical Islamists were armed to the teeth. Mujahideen in the 1980s.
Let's talk about this news story. CBS says, one House Democrat has a novel idea for curbing the sale of automatic weapons like AR-15s, blah, blah, blah. The proposed bill places a 1,000% excise tax on any type of semi-automatic firearm, pushing up the price of the military-style weapon beyond the means of many potential buyers. Fake news, CBS. I just want to shout out, when these journalists write garbage nonsense, military-style. Hunting rifles are identical. It's ridiculous nonsense. But I just want to mention, right away, if you increase the cost of these weapons by 1,000%, crime will get worse.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, your $500 handgun is a $5,500 handgun, and boy, can people make money off that.
Also, it mentions many potential buyers will be priced out. Well, that's a convenient way of saying that these rich political leaders who are proposing these kinds of things will still have armed security, who work for armed security organizations that can afford this kind of thing. They'll be able to purchase these weapons to protect their families. You will not be able to.
And what they're saying is because it's a revenue measure, it can bypass the filibuster and get passed with a simple majority.
Yeah, they think they can do it via reconciliation. I will say, kudos to them. I'm shocked they hadn't thought of this earlier. It's actually kind of ingenious because they're not actually preventing you from buying any sort of. They're not taking your rights away for weapons, but they're making it more expensive.
They did this already with the NFA. So this is just them saying let's apply to standard semi-automatic weapons the same rules that apply to select fire rifles.
Well, and you talked about this a couple episodes ago with the 72-hour waiting period for background checks. If you just get rid of that and you extend it, you can prevent people from owning a firearm just by saying that, So this is it's a little ingenious. I'm surprised they didn't do it. That doesn't mean I think it's a good idea. But, I thought about when it comes to just gun control and all that stuff and what Democrats would do. I've said two things on Twitter. I don't want to hear Democrats talk about gun control in Seattle, at least in Washington State, until they do two things. Acknowledge that it was wrong for rioters up at CHOP to hand stolen rifles out of the back of a trunk of a car, which they never condemned. And then two, until they stop cutting deals with people who commit gun crimes in Washington State. There's so many people who commit crimes, actual criminals commit crimes with a gun, who then get a sweetheart deal, some plea deal with prosecutors, and then politicians turn around and say that they want gun control.
The only thing I have an issue with in that story about CHOP was the stolen part. I think people have a right to keep and bear arms. If they had legal weapons and they were handing them out, I don't see an issue. I think there are issues with political extremists who are armed and killing kids like they did in CHOP, but I think we have a problem with the over-regulation of weapons as a pathetic attempt to stop people from getting them, which it clearly doesn't do.
But what I'm saying is, if you've got this guy, Raz Simone, the warlord of CHOP, who's opening up the trunk of a car, handing out rifles to people who didn't look 21 to me, and you don't have politicians in the city of Seattle condemn that, yet at the same time they're pro-gun control, that's ridiculous.
I make this point all the time, but Luke just made it earlier that the M1A is banned in Maryland, but not the SCAR 20S. For those that are familiar, they're basically the same caliber weapon, but one is like an older, one's a newer. It's just actually, let me put it this way. The people who know nothing about guns, trying to regulate them, is their Achilles heel. 36 states have permitless open carry. 25 have constitutional carry. Florida is set to be the 26th. And all of that expanse of gun access is happening because the people arguing against it are like, we got to ban the AR-15. And you're like, it's meaningless. It's not going to happen. Fine, whatever.
As they're arguing for more weapons for Ukraine, by the way.
Yeah,
Seamus,
yeah,
you had
exactly.
a point.
No. So I just want to make this point. They don't know much about guns, but they know one incredibly important instrumental thing, which is that guns allow you to protect yourself. That is why we see this constant cycle. All right, this has begun probably 2-3 years ago, and expect to see it continue to repeat. They riot. They say it's okay for them to burn down your city and threaten your life. Riots cool down. We need to take your guns. We need to take your guns. Then they riot again, or they threaten to riot again. Then as soon as that calms down, they need to take your guns, right? Just a couple weeks ago, they were threatening insurrection over the Supreme Court potentially overturning Roe. And then they're going to ask you, why do you need an AR-15? Well, because the dominant media culture and virtually every political leader in this country who aligns themselves with the status quo and isn't trying to get themselves in trouble, all the big tech companies sanction your violence against me. So yes, I do want to be able to protect myself and my family.
Yeah. Before the show started, I actually posted a meme of Fidel Castro, and there's the question, what can you do with a population after you disarm them? And then Castro's laughing down there, anything I want. And that's the story of history. That's the story that has happened throughout all of written, recorded history that we need to understand here. I think it's important for people to be able to defend themselves, because who are you going to rely on? The Uvalde Police Department to be there for you during critical moments and times? No, they're going to arrest you, handcuff you if your child's getting shot.
Oh, no, keep going, I'm sorry.
No. Your ability to defend yourself is absolutely crucial and important, and it terrifies people that you could defend yourself, that you could stand up for yourself. And this is why they're putting out all the stops, trying to take away that ability from you.
And so I want to make 2 points about that. So what we saw at Uvalde is basically what gun control advocates push for without realizing it. They want to put you in a position where the police spend their time and energy disarming you and preventing you from protecting your loved ones, while maniacs still run around committing heinous crimes.
And that's exactly what's going to happen if there's more gun control, just like there's in Chicago.
That is what happens. Exactly.
In Mexico.
That is what gun control does. And also, they constantly point to countries like Australia, and they'll claim, look, the gun ban in Australia worked. Well, not really. Gun crime was plummeting at an identical rate before the gun ban. But this is even more important.
Yeah, but hold on. But now do Venezuela. Now do Mexico.
Exactly. Also, as soon as the Australian gun ban occurred, they said, look, Australia isn't a tyrannical nation, as if our argument is it would happen overnight. But then, after a couple years, look, under the COVID regime, Australia has literal concentration camps. They are concentration camps. If you are placed in a holding facility without a trial,
without due process,
and you are forced to stay there in a camp, is a concentration camp. They literally have those in Australia after banning guns, because you can't do that to an armed population.
The definition of a concentration camp, I believe it's from the Holocaust Museum, was a place where a concentration camp was a place where people were held without due process, without charge or trial. So when the government comes and takes people and puts them in a secure facility where they're not allowed to leave, that was the base definition. So there were indigenous people in Australia who were rounded up under COVID suspicion and sent there, and they were trying to escape climbing fences. I want to pull up a couple images for you guys so that you can, because I'm going to assume a lot of people don't know a whole lot about guns, and I'm not going to pretend to be a gun expert here, but take a look at this image right here. This is this looks like a hunting rifle. That's the way that it's often described by people on the left. They say, oh, take a look at this. It's a hunting rifle. That's what you should have. Let me show you this image right here. Ooh, that's a scary assault weapon. Look at that. It's got the pistol grip and that scope on it. Oh, man. Oh, geez. Yeah, the first one is the M1 Garand, literally used in war. The second one is a 450 Bushmaster hunting rifle. They have no idea what they're talking about. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this one. I can just point out right away that they have no idea what they're talking about. Here's the best part. Someone in the super chat said, hey, Tim, pull up a Ruger Mini 14. Functionally the same as an AR-15, but they don't want to ban that one. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a hunting rifle. You know why? Because it's got a wood stock with the rifle grip.
Yeah.
These people have no idea what they're talking about. But you know what? As I sit back and they regulate things that make no sense, I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. I want to point something out to you guys. When I saw this meme and they were like, oh, it showed a picture of what looked like a bunch of M1s, and it was like, these are weapons made for hunting. And then it showed a bunch of pistol grip, rifles that these are made for killing people. And they were talking about gun control and saying, see, this is why we should get rid of these. I'm like, do you think that bullets intended for humans work on big game or deer? Do you think that a deer is a larger creature than a human? Okay, so it stands to reason that typically you will want something more powerful for hunting, right? As opposed to combat. I love it when I'm talking to people and I'll show them, like the ammo we have when we go to the range or whatever, and they'll see a 9mm round or a polymer tip 450 Bushmaster, and I'm like, which one's the weapon of war? And then people don't know how I'm trying to trick them. So they typically will be like, it's going to be the little one, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, because the big one is for killing deer, which are bigger than people. So when they talk about you should only have things for hunting, oh, okay, great. Now we're going to get some lunatic who's going to go out with slugs, 41 mini slugs in a KSG-25. These people have lost their minds. Well, they never had them in the first place. This stuff roused me up, and I'm not even a gun expert, mind you. I'm sure you guys in the chat can correct me on a lot of this stuff and talk about how it's even worse than I'm saying.
Biden says you just need a shotgun, right?
You get a 9mm will blow the lung out of
blasts.
someone.
We went to the gun shop the other day, and they had a.
You didn't invite me? I'm offended.
You weren't here.
You weren't here.
And I was getting a 12 gauge. And they have a 12 gauge with a rotating magazine tube. It has 4 magazine tubes. I think it holds 25. And the guy at the shop is like, "Ooh, this one, your shoulder's gonna be hurting after this one, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but it looks cool, so I want to get it." And then I'm like, "Isn't it funny that Joe Biden is telling people to get shotguns, which are harder to use? They have no idea what they're talking. Like, yeah. I'm reluctant to talk about what would actually happen if some of these crazies decided to use hunting weapons. These people are so dumb. They keep regulating things that make guns more dangerous.
No, exactly. They go off on, you don't need X amount of rounds to hunt. You don't need an AR-15 to hunt. How do you know? Have you ever hunted in your life? Have you ever spoken to a hunter? Dude, basically, I don't know a single person who hunts and is in favor of gun control. Yeah. I'm sure there's somewhere.
Well, they're called
unbelievably
FUDs.
Rare. Yeah.
Well, also the 10
FUDs.
in Washington State, they banned high capacity magazines, which they set at 10 rounds, which for anybody who knows guns isn't really high capacity.
It's low capacity. When you buy a weapon, it comes with a 30. An AR-15 will come with a 30 round mag for 5.56.
Yeah, 10 rounds is not high capacity, but and there's an argument. And I have a friend who survived the Vegas shooting. So, and I just had her on my podcast the other day, and we had a nice conversation about where she's at and what she went through, and I can't even imagine or put myself there. And she was one of the people who got through this 10 round high capacity magazine. And one of the points she brings up is, well, if you're, people say you need it to defend yourself in your home, you shouldn't need 10 bullets. It's like, what? I probably would need 10 bullets. Like, I can't hit anything. And it's like, I don't want to risk needing 11 or 12 bullets. I mean, I'm not a gun person. I don't own any guns, but we have, guns in our home.
And there's so many unanswered questions about that Vegas incident that, again, was brought up initially, was one of the largest mass shootings, and then the corporate media just dropped it, stopped talking about it, didn't even care afterwards. It's absolutely daunting.
I mean, same thing with Kenosha.
Yeah.
They're like, not a terror attack, everybody move on.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It doesn't fit the narrative, doesn't fit the agenda. We can't emotionally manipulate people to get what we want out of this, so we're just going to drop it and not talk about it. That's essentially what happened here. I remember also seeing a meme earlier showing MS-13 gangbangers talking to each other, and one of them's like, "Hey, are we going to the drive-by shooting today?" And then the other MS-13 gangbanger looks at the other guy and says, "I didn't get my gun permit today. I can't do that." so this is how people think the laws are going to work here. They're going to be affecting the people who don't respect the law in the first place. No, it's going to affect law-abiding citizens.
Anybody who's paying attention knows this is just about disarming the population.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with preventing any of these shootings or crime or anything like that. And it's crazy because now they're coming out and they're like 10 mass shootings over the weekend, and I was like, oh, now you care about Chicago?
Yes.
Please, dude.
Exactly. Chicago, the gun-free zone, the place with so much restrictions on people's ability to defend themselves, where criminals know that there's going to be people there who can't do anything if you put a gun in their face because they can't defend themselves when they attack them. So
then you watch these videos out of Brazil, man, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Where there's that viral video where the guy walks up to the group of women. And he's got a gun and he's like shaking at him, and this woman just pulls out a gun and shoots him, and he just hits the deck. I watched another video where these 3 guys break into a house, and you can see the guy like sleeping in his bed watching YouTube or something, like he fell asleep watching YouTube videos, and then all of a sudden you see this woman just walk up with a revolver, bang, bang, and the dudes jump out the window.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to be able to protect yourself than be able to have a firearm? What you're going to do by taking firearms away from individuals is making them potential future victims.
I think I just want to make one more point. What's ironic is these people who will argue that our brains have just been completely rotted away at by gun culture and all the action movies, basically have all of the opinions they have about guns based on action films. Like, they really think you just point at the person, pull the trigger, you're going to hit them every single time. And so that's why they ask questions like, why would you need 10 rounds or more? Look, if someone breaks into your home, your adrenaline's going to be
in
pumping.
the dark.
In the dark. It's going to, like, you're going to be shaking. Even if you're well trained, it's going to be a difficult situation. So to sit there and go, why would someone need more than 10 rounds? I think, what is it? Like, police officers only hit their target something like 30% of the time in high stress situations, and they train more regularly than your average citizen.
How many conversations have you at home had where someone was like, why didn't they shoot the gun out of the perpetrator's hand?
Yes.
So
or
are you
this
nuts?
is my favorite. This is my favorite. Why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? What? And hit a major artery?
Hey, I right, and kill him?
That's why I love when they make the mainstream reporters go do the assignment where they take the training and they have somebody like shoot him with a fake gun. It's like, oh, you're dead because you didn't act fast enough. When I was beginning my career in Seattle, I covered crime and justice before I switched over to politics. And I made a point before I talked about any use of force, I would have that use of force done. I mean, short of being shot. Like when Eric Garner, was it killed by New York police in a chokehold? So I let some police officer on camera choke me in an LVNR, a lateral vascular neck restraint, choke me unconscious to see what it would be like. And I gotta say, I would rather that happen than pepper spray or anything like that, because that's much worse than being choked out. But I think it would be good for reporters. It should be kind of standard in newsrooms to make them go through some of that training that police go through before they talk about it, things like that, like shoot them in the knee.
I think there are plenty of police officers who would volunteer to choke a reporter
That's
out.
what I was going to say, is I'm sure that
we could
the
set this program out.
City of Lakewood Police Department, they asked me for that video. I don't know where the video went, but City of Lakewood, they jumped at the opportunity to do that.
They could stream this on YouTube. We'd send super chats in.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.